Good afternoon and welcome to a scorchingly hot Brands Hatch circuit for the penultimate round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, approaching 30 degrees, and actually now it's over that, unusually high for the UK. Ice cream's in full flow as we're just a few moments from getting qualifying underway. 4 10-minute sessions, the first two full of GT3 cars, the last two for the GT4 cars. There is the confirmation of the weather. Track temperature 42 degrees. Scorchingly hot around this fantastic track. 11 turns, 2.4 miles, 3.9 kilometers. A track steeped in British GT history with the original gamer to racer. From sim racing to real life racing, is even got a film now out documenting it. Jan Mardenborough against a now multiple British GT champion and somebody who can make it another British GT championship. Jonny Adam here, the closest ever finish in British GT history at this very track.
The Nissan is looking very strong indeed. Ready for 2 hours of Brands Hatch, round 6 of the British GT Championship.
My first ever season racing. It's going to be a real tough one.
Jan Mardenborough, the youngster from Wales in that big Nissan. He was playing his PlayStation. Now he is racing for real in the British GT Championship. There is a faster car behind. Jonny Adams still going quicker than Jan Mardenborough, the race leader. A drag race to the line. Nissan just, I think, from Aston Martin.
A finish like that has never been had in British GT.
The last corner, and I thought he got me at the line. Thankfully, I just edged it.
It was on the limit every single corner. Another corner, maybe another lap, and maybe I got there. But overall, happy with second.
British GT history right there, the closest ever finish, quite literally a drag race to the line. British GT always throws up some excellent racing. We could well get something like that again this weekend. Guiding you through all the coverage today is myself, Harry Benjamin, and down in the pits, it's Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks very much there, Harry. You just saw that amazing clip. So close, wasn't it? Well, last year, it almost came down to Ian Loggy winning the championship here if it wasn't such a problem for the Nearys. Next to me, Dan Harper, sitting second in the championship. You've got to finish ahead of Jonny Adam and James Cottingham to stand any chance of going for that Donington decider.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big aim. Of course, anything can happen in a 2-hour race, so our main focus is doing the best job we can. Obviously, you always have the championship somewhere in the back of your mind at this stage of the year. But I mean, we've had a brilliant year, we've had ups and downs, and we're just looking forward to go out, race in the sunshine and have some fun.
Last time out, we were on the Algarve. It was a beautiful sunny day there. Here, it's September, it's Kent, and it's hotter than it was there. Inside the car, we're expecting temperatures around 60, 65 degrees. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about right, yeah. So it's even with the AC on, it's still just blowing hot air around the car, but it's just that little bit of ventilation which just helps. So it's going to be a tricky one, tricky to keep concentration at its peak. So it could be involved with a few mistakes, especially the fast corners out the back. So we'll just try and apply as much pressure on Cottingham and Adam as we can all weekend, and let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, very best of luck to you. Best of luck to Darren, who's out there in the car right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn. Yeah, brilliant to hear from Dan Harper there, sharing the SRO Motorsports BMW M4 GT3 with Darren Leung there off the back of a win back in Silverstone for Leung and Harper, as we get a nice inside view of the cockpit. And alongside me in the commentary box is a British racing driver, GT racing champion and winner, Joe Osborne. Welcome, Joe. Welcome to the heat. I can't imagine it's going to be very pleasant for the drivers in the cockpit.
Yeah, exactly. They're saying 60 degrees in there. I think it's hotter in our commentary box, so I don't feel out of place here as we see the green flag fly for Q1. The Barwell Lamborghini, followed by Harper's teammate there, Darren Leung, sorry. So we always see this outlap, so important to find your position. Neary, the wiry old Foxacre team, leaving the pit lane slowly. That won't be a problem as the cars are so wide and the pit exit's so narrow. You can't be overtaken on pit exit, so it's the easiest way to get a bit of space. The sister car there, Sean Balfe getting his tyres on the car. The Barwell guys will be looking for that space. Obviously, all of these guys are close on lap times, but if you are too close to someone, you get dirty air. If they make a mistake, you inherit their issue, and you suddenly lose your own lap time. With the temperatures being so hot, the drop-off in this Pirelli tyre is going to be even more aggressive than usual. We see the AMs normally get a lap more than the pros, but I still think if you haven't done it on your third flyer, that probably will be about it for your qualifying session.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a tricky track. You've got to be alert always, no matter what. But these hot conditions making things just a little bit trickier. 10 minutes on the clock, already down to 8 minutes and 47 seconds left for this first part of qualifying, GT3 Q1. So it's just the GT3 cars out there. The bronze-graded drivers must take part in this session, and then how it works is we'll get the other allocated drivers in the Q2, GT3 Q2, which is another 10-minute session, and then it's a combined time which will set your overall time for qualifying and where you are on the grid. And it really is a big weekend, isn't it, for British GT, Joe? I mean, it's been a great championship all season long. We've still got the Donington decider to come, but things could still be decided this weekend as well. So qualifying even more crucial perhaps than normal.
Yeah, and it's amazing how your mentality changes as a driver. So Cottingham's got the most to lose because he's in the championship lead. Darren Lewing here, as we see him go through turn number 2, Druid's a very tight hairpin, has got that little less pressure because he's got nothing to lose. He's only can win the championship will be his mentality. So depends how the driver reacts to it. Some people react better under pressure, some are better without. So we'll start to see their true colours here. They've all been very friendly, the AMs, this year. We haven't really had a major rivalry that looks like it's going to boil over, but hopefully the heat might bring some of that out in them, and we will see. They've just gone through Sector 1. We're obviously seeing purple times, 27.3 being the fastest so far. That's still about half a second slower than we saw in practice, so I think these guys are probably going to take another lap to build these tyres up. Pole last year for the AMs was Cottingham on a 24.5, so I think it's going to be around that. We've seen faster times this year, but with it being so hot, that will lead to slower lap times, so I think those two things will negate each other to mean that the bronze pole in this first session should be a mid-24.
Okay, yeah, you can see Darren Leung in this Century BMW really starting to ramp up the pace in that BMW. They are still in the hunt, and crucially, they actually don't have any compensation time to serve this weekend, so that helps them. But the ones to look out for really across this weekend, across this qualifying, are James Cottingham, as Darren Leung goes fastest with his first proper lap time on the board, a 1:25.7. James Cottingham, Johnny Adam, who've won 3 times this year, but now have a chance to do what no crew has actually managed since 2010 and clinch the GT3 drivers title. There is Cottingham at the wheel of that 2C's Motorsport Mercedes. They could clinch the title with a race to spare, but they do have maximum compensation time. So does make that unlikely, but not impossible. So they're 28 points clear, and Cottingham was actually fastest in Q1 last year. And equally, Johnny Adam no other driver has more Brands Hatch wins than he does. So as a combination, they stand a pretty good chance as Cottingham finds almost half a second in Sector 1.
Yeah, you saw it a little bit loose there, up over the hill into Sheen. The sparks flying normal on the Mercedes. It's the only car that's really adopted the strategy of having titanium skid blocks on that sill of the car. So cars without that are wearing out either the carbon fibre or wooden panel, but that Mercedes looks so planted. Cottingham, the onboard we had, his arms look so relaxed. You can just see his right hand on the steering wheel. There's no tension there. Going to break the beam. What time is it? 25.0. It's going to be close. Like I said, he was pole last year, half a second quicker than that, so he'll know that. Maybe that's his banker lap. Track limits, always a hot topic. Really difficult in the Indy part of the circuit because the first 3 corners have sensors. Then when you go into the wild west of the GP part, there aren't any sensors, so it feels like you can get away with a little bit more there. Kevin Say going through Westfield Bend. You can see the cars, the bumps here. GT3 cars got so quickly up to 5th. Should be 4th gear for the next corner. Get it all over the curb on the inside. Full throttle, drag it back over to the right. Another brake, 3rd gear. Really bank Sterling here. The camera shows it a little bit, but the car really hunkers in. You can see him running all the way up to the grass, kicking up the dirt into the last corner. Again, hard on the brakes, 4th gear, 100 miles an hour through here. Super quick. The road drops away, and the gravel trap, as we see Cottingham spin onto that GP part of the track, gets going again. Should be fine, but that'd be an interesting spin to look back at. Kevin Say breaks the line, goes up to P2, but yeah, where Cottingham spun there, that's really early, so I'd imagine he's broken late, carried the brake a bit too heavy and hard into the corner, and then the car's rotated round on him, but he got on his way, but as he flat spotted a tyre, as he lost his head. He's currently P1, but he might not have an easy chance to respond if people do get any closer to him.
Yeah, well, it looks like he's managed to get going again. Z did cross the line to get second fastest at the moment in the Sky Tempesta Racing McLaren 720S, the Silver Cup Championship leaders, 3 consecutive class wins so far this year. This is the other car that is in contention this weekend, currently now third after Z got up into second in the McLaren, so the BMW finding time in the first sector, losing a little bit in the middle sector though. Cottingham is able to get going, so he's still making his way round as Leon makes his way round the final corner and across the line, and will have to go again for that one, but currently third fastest. Aha, here we go then. So what happened to Cottingham?
So he's coming down the Cooper straight here. The next corner is where he spun, so I think he either turns in a bit early, so turns left early, because the rear of the car is going to come round. 3, 2, 1, now. You can just see it came round. It was actually the transition phase. He was already off the brake and he wasn't on the throttle. So I think he was just on the limit of the tyre. And I have to explain to guys I'm coaching, tyres only have 100% grip. If you're asking 105% of a tyre, something has to give, and it's normally the rear of the car on entry, and that's what happened there. Kevin Say getting close to his best time, but half a tenth slower. But it's so important to get a second banker lap in here, because you can do your lap and then race control can take it away if you have a track limit issue. So even if you don't think you're going to beat it, if it's another strong lap, you've got to finish it. Here basically, Sean Balfe going up to third place, getting close there, only 600ths behind Kevin Say. Really strong in sector 3, Sean Balfe. He's the fastest as all of them. We know how quick Sean Balfe can be. Sometimes puts too much pressure on himself. He's such a nice guy. Just I think sometimes needs to lay into someone. Maybe Sandy Mitchell, his teammate there in shot, needs to take some more of the heat off him. But they all look quite relaxed in the Barwell garage. Chris Liddell and Mark Lemmer there running the team. So I see cars starting to catch each other. It doesn't matter. You start with the session with a gap, and then if you catch someone, you can't back out of a lap. That's why it's so important to get a massive gap at the start of that session.
Yeah, traffic management is so crucial, even in qualifying here for this. But despite the little spin, Cottingham able to improve his lap time. It's just gone faster and stays fastest. A 1:24.671 for Cottingham, who, along with his teammate Johnny Adam, he'll jump in the car in a few minutes' time when we get GT3 Quali 2 underway. At the moment, looking very good. But Leung also personal best in the final 2 sectors in that BMW. They are still very much in the hunt here for the title in that BMW. Second fastest ahead of Z. Radcliffe's going well too in the McLaren. He's just popped up into 5th. Ian Loggy in the Mercedes is in with a shot, but at the moment down in 6th as Smith gets up into 12th in his McLaren as well with a 1:26.420. Ferguson Campbell rounding out the timed qualifying laps so far. Still not seen much from the number 67. That's the Orange Racing of Simon Orange at the wheel of that. He is on an outlap though at the moment.
Yeah, I think they had a problem in free practice too. I wasn't able to actually get to the problem. The team wouldn't tell me that gravel being kicked up there. I think that was Ferguson we saw in the foreground. Howard here in the Aston Martin. So maybe see the strengths of these cars. Howard's now just on that last lap got 2 purple speed traps, so the fastest out of anyone. They've really got that Aston Martin good in a straight line, but are they maybe compromising a bit of downforce and drag in that middle sector, because he just seems to be losing out a little bit. 9/10 of a second off this guy, James Cottingham, 24.6. Looked like he's winding himself up for another lap. That last lap was 6 seconds slower, so he's obviously gone a little bit slower. Get the tyres and brakes cool in these temperatures. They can soon start to get out of their operating window. Go looking at Mike Price in the Greystone GT. Same car as that Cottingham car, but run by a different team. So they might look exactly the same, but under the bonnet, under all the suspension components, these cars will be set up to the team and driver preferences. So just trying to look at the timing screen. Doesn't look like anyone's on a massive improvement. Loggy's the only one really near the front that is on a green sector at the moment. Like I thought it might be 3 or 4 laps where these tyres dropping off, and it does look like it. You can see a strange looking Kevin Say, James Cottingham's face there on the graphic, so don't think those two are sharing. You can see the tyre pressure on the front right of that dash. They're up to 1.75. He started at 1.63, so seeing quite a big increase there. Garage 59 guys will be all over that, but that's probably a little bit higher than they would want. I think they probably want them below 1.7 bar. Sounds low, but when they're so hot, the hotter they are, the more they warm up. Cottingham is 600ths up on this lap. He's still half a second clear of everyone, but you don't know that as a driver. You don't know if anyone else is chasing you down. Lost 6/10 in the middle sector though. That's probably the tyres peaking. Looks like he's backed out of it. Is he going to box? Should do, save the tyres for the race. He's going to finish it. He's already done 2 laps, good enough for pole, so he obviously feels like he wants a few more laps around the GP circuit.
Yeah, and considering the confidence taking a slight knock with the earlier spin, still able to find more and more time. Leong was finding time, as was Z, but then backed off in the final sector. So Leong settles for second in front of Z at the moment. Ian Loggy jumped up, the reigning champion. He was briefly fifth, but now down to seventh. Radcliffe and Howard, who peeled into the pits there. But that is the checkered flag then at the end of this GT3 qualifying 1 session. So the lowest graded drivers coming in for this session to set their fastest lap as Z jumps Leong right at the very end. Half a second though between Cottingham and Z in terms of lap time.
If you actually take Cottingham out of the equation, the next 14 drivers are covered by a second, and he's got half of that to himself. Johnny Adam, his teammate, will be thinking, well, if that's how quick the car is, this is going to be an easy session, and he will be happy. So Cottingham's done a bit of a Max Verstappen there, hasn't he? He's kind of gapped the field and really laid down the challenge to everyone else. Johnny's so calm. I just love looking at the body language of him. Out of the car, he's one of the nicest guys. In the car, I've always only had positive fights with him, but he looks so relaxed, thinking the car's only 45 seconds away from him probably getting in it. He'll just be doing his last minute things. There's always a corner or two as a driver that you know you haven't nailed yet in practice, and you'll just be going, what's my brake reference? What gear I am? What have I done wrong? What do I want to do right? This is your final chance to prep as we see what happened in that session.
Yeah, as out from the pits they peel to set the fastest lap time they can in this first qualifying session for the GT3 cars here for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, the penultimate round. The championship could be decided in tomorrow's racing with James Cottingham at the wheel of the 2Cs Mercedes that's found, well, the wrong direction. He managed to get going again and still found the time going faster and faster as the likes of Kevin Z and Darren Leong in their BMWs and McLarens fighting hard to maintain their pace, but Cottingham was able to hold half a second nearabouts over the field the entire time. But these, the bigger Fire GT3 cars out in force, and Cottingham was the fastest. Okay, here we go then. Confirmation of this first qualifying one for the GT3 cars, and it was the 2Cs Mercedes Motorsport car of James Cottingham who was fastest in front of Kevin C in the McLaren. Darren Leong, the BMW, third in front of Sean Bouth, all in the fight still in his Lamborghini. Fourth, Radcliffe, the top 5. Howard, Ian Loggy, the reigning champion, will be in seventh fastest time. Hart, Price, Smith, the top 10, with Campbell rounding out the 15 drivers. But now we head into qualifying 2. The pros get in the same car and set their fastest lap time they can, and then we combine the times, and that is where and how we will set the grid for tomorrow's racing. So Johnny Adam will hop into the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes car as the sun shining down here, but we will shortly head down and speak to, or we will speak to them now. The fastest driver from that session with Bryn Lucas.
Well, do you know what? You can't get a driver much fresher than we've got right now. James Cottingham, you've just taken the crash helmet off. You just put Johnny in the car there. Half a second up you were. You need to get a win here. Pole last year. You must be fancying your chances. What's it like out there for you, and what's the game plan?
The game plan, stay out of trouble. The game plan was, or is, to try and be front row of the grid, because I think here is so difficult to pass. Obviously, I saw I had a good lap 1, and was just trying to push for another lap, and obviously had a spin at Surtees, but that corner all weekend is where we've been trying to develop the stability of the car. But I know where the limit is now, so that's good as a radio. And I was surprised to have the margin we did, because it didn't feel perfect, but it did feel on the edge. So I'm really pleased, and just really hope that Johnny has good luck on his side, and we get the front row of the grid as we want.
Yeah, we're just out of trouble. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bryn.
Well, there was James Cottingham. Thank you, Bryn, for that. And he was fastest in the Q1 session as we get Q2 underway shortly. But James Cottingham then able to get that Mercedes to the top of the time as he topped Q1 last year. He tops it again, as you can see the sparks flying as the front bumper scrapes along the tarmac here at Brands Hatch for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. Okay. Q2 then underway for the GT3 cars. The pros now get into the cars and set the fastest lap they can. That lap is then combined with the AM drivers from the Q1 session, and that overall time sets where you will start on the grid for the British GT race a little later on tomorrow. Now, Joe Osborne joins me in the commentary box. Now, Joe, you're a prolific GT racer. For those who might have just stumbled across us here at Brands Hatch, right now we've got the GT3 cars on track. To the layman, can you just explain what is involved in a GT3 car? What's happening right now? Why, what they've got to do on these outlaps to get the best out of their qualifying lap?
Yeah, so all of these guys will be on brand new tyres, all the same spec Pirelli DHF tyres, so there's no difference there. The teams use tyre ovens, they get them up to the temperature they want them at. A bit easier on a hot day like this, but towards the end of the outlap, the driver's got a choice. Am I happy with where they are? I can feel the tyre, I can see the tyre pressure live on the dash, and we saw Ross Gunn there into the last corner, just weave left to right, just probably not quite happy with getting the releasing agent off the tyre, and as a driver you can just feel it skipping rather than gripping, and gripping is better than skipping when you want to go fast. So he was just trying to get the last bit off there, and all of these guys, they just extract that little bit more out than the AM, and that goes through the tyre in energy. So last year these guys were 1.6 seconds quicker in Q2 than Q1. The AMs will argue, well, they've got less fuel, I was carrying their fuel, so it's even basically, but these guys will be working at it. I was within a tenth of Q1, so I'm claiming that as a good one. You see him actually bailing out, you could see him on the brakes early, and he was catching the guys there who are still on their outlap. Because Ross is the trailblazer, first out the pits, he catches the traffic first. So he's had a hard decision to make there because he was green and purple. Not amazing, because when you're the first, you're always going to be purple, but to still be purple after 7 cars, that will hurt him. So he's now got to work that little bit harder to keep that tyre in a window and get the time through. We see the first flying lap, really, Mikey O'Brien, 24.7. I think pole will be a 22 just. 23.0 might clinch it, but I think at the moment these guys are all just starting to come through. And again, there's different strategies. You don't have to hit it on your first lap. People might take a lap or two longer to get it in if it means they get an extra chance of a fast lap, basically.
Yeah, well, after these first flies, really, you'll see the timing screen, the timing board on your screen chopping and changing as each car goes faster and faster. We can see the individual times. You can see the combined times with the drivers that went out in Q1. Now, obviously, Joe, how important is it? We've got 2 drivers in British GT in the same team, literally sharing the same car across a weekend. One is a professional racing driver with professional levels of experience. The other, less experienced, slightly lower graded driver, as we've got a huge plume of dust across the track, visibility reduced, so somebody's clearly had a little skirt into the gravel, but no car can be found facing the wrong direction or in the wall, so they may have got away with it. But how important is that relationship between the 2 drivers, literally sharing the exact same car?
Massive. You couldn't be more of a team, because you're trying to get to the same goal, but you do it in a different fashion. The AM might want a different feeling from the car, might want it a little bit sort of softer and subtle, whereas a pro is quite happy to have it stiff and direct, but then leery. So you're always battling between those 2, and that's probably, for me, as we see James Kell running wide. I think that might even be the same corner as we saw the dust just coming through Dingledale Sheen. I think it was Harper, because he was in front of Gunn, who kicked the original dust up, but you see the guys there having to work, and again, weaving those tyres to get them in clean. But at the moment, Gunn is overall pole. He has done a 23.4, which is an absolute flyer. So even Andrew Howard was only 6th in his session. At the moment, Ross Gunn has done enough to bring that all the way up to pole position.
Yeah, absolutely. That fastest lap time of 1:23.487. Jules Gounon out there as well. Missed Portimao, actually. He's a multiple Le Mans winner and a very, very good top-level GT racer. Missed a couple of rounds, but always shows well whenever he gets into a GT car. He's in this Mercedes, and he'll come across the line, and it's 4th for him. Well, that's all it's all changing about, really. Mitchell then 2nd overall on the Lamborghini, puts that 2nd overall, but it's still Johnny Adam fastest overall in that Mercedes with the combined times. It's Mitchell, though, with a 1:23.2 in the number 78 Lamborghini, the Barwell Motorsport, which has the fastest outright time at the moment. It's worth saying, actually, I think the qualifying record for British GT, 1 minute 22.9, Seb Morris back in 2016 in the Bentley Continental. But that is, so that's the sort of fastest individual lap time. 1:23.126, the fastest individual lap time set by Gunn right now. But we look at the combined times, and that at the moment sees Johnny Adam right at the top of the timing screens, courtesy of his work and his teammate James Cottingham in Q1. Plowman manages to get his McLaren up into 9th spot overall, just behind Raffaele Marcello. Mitchell, though, looks like he's on an even better lap right now in this Lamborghini in the Barwell Motorsport car.
Yeah, green sector 1, just coming through sector 2 now. Slightly off, only half a tenth off his best, so he's got a chance here to maybe find another half a tenth in the last sector. No traffic to worry about. Chucks it into this last corner. You can see him working the wheel all the way up to the gravel trap. Really good, easy way to police track limits there. Is just have the gravel next to the black stuff. You can't do anything. Comes across the line. Does he improve? 23.4. No, he lost a couple of tenths in that last sector again, but he's still pushing on. Under 3 minutes remaining. So yeah, Johnny Adams still clear. Got 3.5 tenths over Harper from Mitchell, the car we're on board with. So nice to hear a naturally aspirated engine, isn't it? Still V10 in the back as we go to Martin Plowman there, coming through this corner. It's caught a couple of guys out, chucks it in. See that front right was clear in the air. He was using so much curb. He'll be getting told by the team exactly what he needs to do, what he needs to find to get him up a place or two. But it's so tight, isn't it, in this midfield, that a tenth or two is definitely what you need.
Yeah, Martin Plowman at the wheel of that Paddock Motorsport McLaren 720S GT3 Evo. Tough season so far. They have a best of 8th overall at Alton Park a couple of months ago. But Plowman doing his best, lost a bit of time, as you say, in those last couple of sectors. 9th overall at the moment in that Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Johnny Adams still top. Jules Gounon, though, puts their Mercedes that he shares with Ian Loggy, the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes. That goes 5th overall, just behind Gunn in the number 97 Aston Martin Beechstein car, sharing that with Andrew Howard, who was out in Q1, but they peel off into the pits. There is the number 4, though, the one that they've all got to beat. As you can see, runs quite low to the ground, doesn't it? I mean, no, it's bumpy here, it's undulating, so it is really easy to see some sparks fly as the front bumper and the splitter drags along the tarmac.
Yeah, it's so rough in the car as a driver, you're getting all of that energy through the bottom of the seat, and there's no padding for comfort in that seat, so it comes straight up your spine and into your head, and sometimes makes your eyes go a bit wobbly. But we've seen a mega lap from Gounon in the sister car, so I think that lap was then taken away, though, because he's just gone down the timing screen back off that little bit. So it's amazing. You feel like you've got your lap in, then the race control just take it off you, and the fraught conversations that you do get between engineer and driver trying to explain your innocence, even though there's a camera proving you're very much guilty. I love watching that BMW in the slow speed. It's such a big car, but yet still so nimble on its feet. I think the Century guys have done a really good job. They've inherited a strong car from BMW Motorsport. We see it winning across the globe, but the British circuit's just that bit tighter and twistier than the European GP circuits that we obviously see it being run by some of the top teams out there. And the traction now looks better. I think at the start of the year, you could see the car kind of lurching for grip, but they've really seemed to get that rear end especially more comfortable, and I think that's why we've seen such a good improvement from Darren Loring. He's done a really good job at getting that car into the window once, and I've been so impressed by Harper. Some of his overtakes have been so aggressive but so well timed. I think he's really come into British GT with a bang and had a mega debut year.
It's just a really good-looking car as well, don't you think? That's a BMW M4 GT3 run by the Century Motorsport team. A win at Silverstone for Dan Harper and Darren Leon. Dan Harper at the wheel of that car right now. Gets a little bit rugged coming out of the corner. The right rear picking up a little bit of the dust, a little bit of the gravel, but manages to keep it pointing in a straight line. Not finding too much speed in that particular corner, but as the checkered flag then falls, we are out of time for this qualifying 2, where we see the combined times. And right now, it is sitting pretty at the top overall. Johnny Adam in the 4Cs Mercedes, the 2Cs Mercedes, which is really on course to really make the the championship this weekend, perhaps. Tall order to do it with their success penalties, but right now in qualifying, getting the job done, as did James Cottingham, his teammate, out in Q1. But Rafael Marcello is not quite done yet as he finds the sparks as well. Marcello currently down in 7th overall. He's 5th on his individual time with a 1:23.3, just a couple of tenths off of Russ Gunn, who is fastest overall, but he decides to bail into the pits at the end of that one. And so a little glance on the timing screens. No one really going for one final flyer. They're out of time. And there is some of the sparks flying there from Raffaele Marcello, a Spa 24-hour, multiple GT champion as well, the young Italian, Swiss, racing under the Swiss flag now, was once in Formula One, associated with the Ferrari and the Sauber teams too, and now finding and really making a name for himself in GT racing. But that is the end then of qualifying 2, and once again it was the 2C's Mercedes Motorsport car at the front. Over to you, Bryn.
Well, Johnny, last time out, 19th win in British GT. If you can make it 20 here at Brands Hatch, no pressure on you, you take the title again. You were handed the keys to the car there in the qualifying session from your teammate with a half-second lead over everyone else, so you must have got into it feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, I mean, that for me is one of James's special laps this year. You know, to put that margin round here is testament to the level he's operating at, really, and it makes my life a little bit easier. But we made a few big changes before qualifying there as a team. They really did pay off. The car felt really hooked up there. It's quite close round here. It's quite a short lap round Brands, so we're in the right place for tomorrow, starting on pole. We'll just get our heads down and see what unfolds tomorrow afternoon.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Johnny Adam there, who was fastest overall with James Cottingham come the end of qualifying, and they are odds on to seal the championship, but it's not quite done yet. Could they make history this weekend and do it with still a round to spare before we head to the Donington decider? Well, qualifying has gone rather well for them, but the Century Motorsport duo are keeping them on their toes. Darren Harper and Leon at the wheel of that BMW. Then comes the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, 3rd overall. In front of the Beach Dean Aston Martin, Jules Gounon and Ian Loggy, reigning champion Ian Loggy in the Mercedes. The other 2C's Motorsport entry, 5th overall. Then comes Kevin Z and Chris Froggatt in the McLaren, the top 6. Marcello and Ferguson for Ram Racing, 7th overall. Then the Optimum Motorsport car, Paddock Motorsport and Barwell Motorsport round out the top 10. In front of the Greystone Orange Racing, the team ABBA Racing and DriveTac and Race Lab with Kell and Campbell at the wheel, 15th overall at the end of qualifying 2. Well, the sun beating down on this Brands Hatch circuit as we got ready once again for GT3 qualifying, this time Quali 2. So the pros sub in and set the fastest lap they can to then deliver the combined time overall, which will set our grid for our British GT race on Sunday. But initial opening laps underway, and it really was shopping and changing left, right and centre with the likes of the number 78 Sandy Mitchell going to the top early doors. But really, once Johnny Adam got behind the wheel and got underway in his Mercedes 2C's Motorsport, well, he found the pace and he found the speed rather quickly and went to the top of the timing screens and pretty much stayed there, looking for another British GT win and a championship. Okay, so that's the GT3s done and dusted. We can forget about them now, can't we, Joe? Because now we go to GT4. And again, for the laymen, for those who are just stumbling across us, what's the difference, GT4, GT3?
So quite a lot. If you quickly glance at them, you may not see too much. If you put them side by side, it gets a bit easier. But they're much smaller cars. They're based on a road car a lot more. So as a rough rule of thumb, a GT3 car has 10% road car parts in it, whereas a GT4 will have 90% in it. So they're that bit slower, a little less extreme, but no easier to be fast in. I would actually argue, after racing in both categories for quite a few years, the GT4 is actually harder to be fast in because it is more road car based. It's a bit softer, it's a bit squishier in places. A GT3, well set up, is on rails, where these are moving around. There's less downforce. You can make a bigger difference as a driver, it feels. You can use more curb because they're softer, but too much, you get a big issue. So they're going to be slower. Last year out pole in this session was a 31.4, so we're looking at sort of 8 to 9 seconds slower. And predominantly that is in the corners. In the speed traps, it isn't a big difference percentage-wise, but narrower tyres, less downforce, a bit heavier. They're using less exotic materials, less carbon fibre, for example, in the bodywork. Just means it all adds up to always the rough rule of thumb is a second per corner. We've got 10 corners around here. The track map says 11, but I don't count one. So that's where we get to our point. So, yeah, let's see where they get to. They do normally get a little bit longer out of their tyres, though, as we see the championship leading Artura there, run by Optimum Motorsport. Had quite a big issue in free practice too, and they were even worried they wouldn't get the car out. There was a large water leak on that car, so the Optimum guys were all over it when I walked past, and you get the body language. I didn't actually ask, are you going to make it? But I saw how many parts were next to the car with the time remaining, so they've done a really good job to get out there, and they can clinch the championship this weekend.
They certainly can. And just to reiterate what's going on right now, this is the first of the qualifyings for the GT4 cars. So in the car right now is the lower graded driver, because the other driver will be the pro that comes in for the next qualifying session. But right now, you set your fastest lap time you can, and then in the second session, it gets combined, and that leads to your overall time, which sets the grid once again for the race. So exactly the same as we just saw in GT3, copied and pasted for GT4 right now. And as you say, there is a realistic chance we will crown our GT4 champions this weekend with Jack Brown and Charles Clark. So keep an eye on that number 90 Optimum Motorsport McLaren Artura, which really does look like it's going to take the victory. Optimum Motorsport crew need to increase their current 33-point lead to 38 if they're to seal the deal. And they have no performance penalties to serve, while their other rivals, so the Century BMWs of Michael Johnston and Chris Salkeld, are subject to the maximum 20 seconds as well. So it does look like they're odds-on favourites, but you still got to get the job done in qualifying, haven't you, to make it easy for yourself, because this is a track that is not the easiest to overtake on.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a great lap from Will Moore here as we're watching him coming into the last corner, in the Academy Mustang really struggled this year. BOP hasn't been on their side, is the card the team are playing. I was speaking to Matt Nicol-Jones earlier, but they have been given a break this weekend, and it's certainly showing it on the timing screens as he breaks the beam. What's he going to do lap time wise? All the way up to P1, 32.2. So that is a little bit off the pace of last year's quali, but it's much quicker than any of the free practice times we've seen today.
Yeah, Will Moore at the wheel, Silver Cup win at Alton Park for that Ford Mustang as well in the Academy Motorsport. Fastest then, a 1:32.225 ahead of Tom Holland. No, not that one. In the number 55, that's the Raceway Janetta. Holland winning Alton Park a few months ago as well with Michael Crease too. So got some good results so far this season. This though is on board with our on course to be champions if everything goes well. Jack Brown at the wheel of the McLaren Artura, and on their first fly, fastest of anybody in Sector 1, finding almost 4/10 in the middle sector as well. Gets so close to the grass on the inside, coming through the final corner up to the timing line, and it is fastest, a 1:32.165. So just over half a tenth clear of the number 90. Well, I don't know, it's just changed now because Miller's just gone fastest to 1:31.6. So now it's 6/10. So time's tumbling massively within the space of seconds.
Yeah, those two McLarens were both hooked up, aren't they? And that DTO car of Miller could probably see that Optimum car, and it was a nice gauge for him to be able to see. And 6/10 over one lap, he would have felt like a hero chunking away. So he would have known he was on a good lap. The Optimum guys will be happy with second. Obviously, the combined times, it's actually not important about the position. It's more important about the gap. So the engineer there, Adam Brown, will be saying, right, we need to get on this. We need to be half a second, really. So we see Will Moore go back up to second. It's still half a second. That was a great lap by Miller. They were here last week testing, and not many of their rivals were. It's a hard track to test at. Lots of noise restrictions here. So the test days sometimes aren't looked at as fruitful just because there's so many cars on track. But DTO rolled the dice and did come here. Obviously at a great expense, but seems to work. You can see Jack Brown have to back out the lap. He caught another car, so he's got to find his space. Still hasn't got a huge gap. Looking in his rear view camera, I can see he hasn't got anyone behind, so he can still back up a little bit and stay on the racing line a little bit more. You can see how dusty it was. He's backed up well there to the Toro Verde car of Townsend. As we see Miller finishing his lap, he's just behind. All these cars are so close on track. We're going to really get pelted. No green sectors so far, nearly 3/10 down Is he going to be able to do anything as an improvement? No. But that lap still would be good enough for pole position. A 31.8 would be 0.2 clear of second. So, yeah, like I said, great pace there from Aston Miller.
Yeah, second in the Silver Cup category at the moment in that DTO Motorsports. McLaren as well, but fastest still on a 1:31.647 is the number 36 DTO Motorsport car of Miller. And then Hopkins, Moore, Brown, Evans, the top 5. Carl Cavers further back in the BMW. That's the number 22, has just got up into 10th spot off the back of their win in the Algarve last time around. So a good lap from Carl Cavers, who's just been knocked down to 11th, as well as Duggan gets up into the top 10.
Yeah, we're not seeing any green sectors from the top 6 cars at the moment, but it is so tight, so easy to get obsessed with the timing screen, not seeing green. But if it's 1,000th slower, it will show as yellow. So when you're trying to keep an eye on so many people, you're looking more of a generic lap time.
We've actually got 2 drivers on the exact same time, both 4th and 5th, so Brown and Evans, 1:32.165 for each of them. But because Brown said it first, he goes higher.
Yep, he gets it. We actually had it earlier in the year after Q2 with combined times. We still had them the same. So it's amazing when you try and work out what that distance difference is over 2 laps effectively. It's absolutely incredible. Still seeing a lot of jockeying for position there. Aston Miller backing up into that Ginetta. He's just trying to get his gap to Brown, but he's in such a nice position where he can see Brown and he can work out how hard he needs to push. Is he struggling at a corner? Where can he improve? We do see a slight improvement for Hopkins in the R Racing Aston as well, but yeah, Miller's absolutely nailed it, hasn't he, to be half a second clears. Cottingham-esque as Q1 we saw.
It really is, isn't it? It sets you a buffer nice and early on, doesn't it? It just takes the pressure off slightly. Let's focus in on this, though, the number 14 Century Motorsport car with Chris Salkeld at the wheel. It's Johnston, actually, isn't it, at the wheel, Michael Johnston. So they're carrying a penalty, though, 20 seconds. Championship leaders, too, further in the other category, 2 wins, 6 podiums to their name in that BMW. So Johnston then currently 6th fastest, and in the first sector, well, overall he hasn't found too much time, but it's, I mean, we're talking tenths and thousandths of a second really here, but Moore going very fast as well in second in that number 62 Ford Mustang.
Yeah, finally making that deficit, still 2.5 tenths, but he's halved it at least to Aston Miller, so making Aston Miller look a little bit more human than some of the others have managed. And it was a purple sector from Wilmore as well, so this late on in the session he'll be feeling confident. 50 seconds remaining, so people just getting into sector 2 will not get another lap, so this will be their last chance, kicking up the dust. I spoke to Peter Daly, the race director. He will not be using the TV footage as evidence for track limits this weekend. It's not fair if the camera is following a particular car more than others, so that will not be guilty, even though it couldn't be more black and white if your wheels are literally driving on mud. That will be let off. Going back on board with Jack Brown, what can we see? I can see so much going on. I know this car a little bit too well for comfort, probably spent more time in this car than my house in the last couple of years with development. See the rev lights along the top, getting a little bit of a run on the older McLaren GT4, the 570 of Morgan there, so it'll be a little bit heavier. The Team Brick guys still with that 570, obviously having to adapt it to hand controls for Morgan. They haven't been able to get the Artura ready for them yet. But you see that 570 still got some poke, hasn't it? So the Artura went more modern ethos, more downforce, more grip, but to keep the BOP fair, it has to have less power, and that was a great shot of that less power, wasn't it? The 570 really pulled away, and then the Artura catches back up in the corner. So this is a great argument for BOP, which way do you want it? And I always preferred more power than grip because it's easier to go fast and straight over the corners, but you're going to see that now because Jack Brown, I don't think is going to be able to overtake Morgan through the corner, and then he goes down the straight. He's like, he can't catch me now. So it is very frustrating as a driver, and that's really ruined his last lap. But Morgan's not doing anything wrong because he is now on his best lap, so all's fair in love and war in qualifying. There isn't blocking if you are pushing. It's only blocking if you impede someone on purpose. But look at the waft of that thing. That must be absolutely flat out. Again, I know that car too well. 570 horsepower is a road car. Normally we're sub 500 as a BOP, but that's got to be knocking on the door fully flat out as mega to watch.
Yeah, so not able. No, it's no surprises. They weren't able to improve their times.
Well, Walker was.
Well, Brown wasn't. Yeah, no. Well, exactly, he was holding him up. But if that was a race, we would argue we'd be screaming, brilliant racing, so almost toe to toe. But that brings us nicely to the end then of the first qualifying for GT4, and in the end, well, it was the number 36 DTO McLaren Artura Aston Miller getting the job done. Had a half a second gap, and it went down to 2.5 tenths, but still managed to have it with a 1:31.647 over the number 62 of Wilmore in that Ford Mustang. But that is just the beginning of how qualifying will unfold, because as they come into the pits, these drivers will then, the lower ranked drivers will get out of the car, and in come the pros, and they will set their best lap time, which will equal the combined lap time between the two drivers. And then we take that combined time and use it to set Sunday's race grid for our GT4 category. Okay then. Lovely shot. I wonder what tree that is around here, but it's a lovely one. This is the end of qualifying 3 overall, but the first of the GT4s, and it was Aston Miller. Fastest in that DTO Motorsport then, in front of Wilmore, Hopkins, Brown, Evans at the top 5. But it was so tight, just 2.5 tenths, less than that really, between our top 2 fastest times. And then a little bit more of a gap back to the number 90 Optimum Motorsport of Jack Brown, who ended up 4th, and they are but in the hot seats along with his teammate Charles Clark to take the GT4 Championship this weekend. But they didn't quite have it in this first qualifying, but they may be able to make up some ground though. About 6 tenths over that, really, 8 tenths really, they'll have to find at the very least. This then, though, was how it all kicked off in GT4 category. It was fresh out the blocks, first out the blocks for Jack Brown in the number 90 McLaren Artura, and, well, multiple drivers, particularly the number 29 of Ian Goff in that McLaren, not afraid of dipping a toe, dipping a wheel, maybe even more than a wheel, onto the grass and onto the gravel. Track management, even in qualifying, so crucial here to find yourself a gap. As we saw across the stages of this qualifying, you can very easily get held up. The Ford Mustang now was looking really quick with Will Moore at the wheel. A Silver Cup win at Alton Park, finding time as well. Was second fastest overall, but the fastest went to the number 36 of Miller. As a little bit of a hush comes over the track, we can head down once again to the pit lane and to our reporter, Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, so Will Moore looking quick, but you're looking quicker out there. 2 tenths up on him, but you're looking at the championship with Jack Brown and Charles Clark. You're around 6 tenths quicker than those going to the second part of qualifying.
Yeah, obviously my first stint and first in quali Q1, did a good job first lap out there. You just got to sort of use that new tyre. You know you've got more grip. You just got to almost trust yourself that you've got it. Yeah, we went out there and lucky we got it in the first lap. So yeah, really good job from me and all the team. Been working really hard from last round at Portimao. Obviously Charles Clark and Jack Brown, obviously 2 quick drivers as well. But we might have a little edge on them this weekend, but hopefully we'll be in the championship for Donington.
Very, very quickly, because I know we're about to get qualifying underway for the second part. Then, when you look at the championship, you are some fair distance off, but there's a gaggle of you grouped together. Are you aiming for second, or are you aiming for first still?
Do you know what? Obviously, we're all aiming for the win, which I still think is possible. Obviously, we're in endurance racing. We've got a 2-hour race this weekend and a 2-hour race at Donington. Anything could happen. So it's not over at all yet. We're pushing as hard as possible. And at the end of the day, we've had the package all year. We've been quick. Just luck hasn't been on our side a few times, but that's part of racing. So yeah, full focus. We're going full steam ahead, and it's going to go well.
And he's heading off right now, so good luck. Thanks, Aston.
Thank you.
Bryn there talking to Aston Miller from the DTO Motorsport McLaren Artura team, running that GT4 car, fastest in the first part of the GT4 qualifying. But now, well, we'll have the second drivers take over and try and set as fast a lap they can to equal the combined times. But so what are those drivers then thinking now, Joe, as they get ready into the second qualifying? They've seen what their teammates have done. Are they literally just thinking figuratively and data-drivenly, right, I've got this amount of tenths to find?
Yeah, it's so nice being Q2, especially in GT4 where you've got silver, so the difference in lap time between Q3 and 4 isn't as big as we see in Q1 and 2 in GT3, so they have a pretty good idea. Aston Miller there being nice and humble, admitting what a great job he did, and then mentioned the team, which was lucky on his part. So Josh Rowledge's teammate will know exactly where he needs to be, that 31.5. Wow, look how racy that looks. So they were racy on early on in the lap as well, and it's still going on all the way. This was a replay earlier in the lap. Mikey Broadhurst on the grass, going down the inside of the other Mercedes GT4. Shows you as a driver exactly how important track position is, that you're willing to put a 200,000 pound car on the grass and maybe throw it in the bridge. But as long as you've got track position, that's all that matters. So yes, let's have a look. The cars are all the same, but they've got that little bit less fuel than Q1 now, different drivers, so we don't historically see a big difference in lap time. Last year it was only 0.2 quicker in Q4 than 3 as we see Mikey Broadhurst. Car's been run by One Motorsport all years, now gone to ABBA. Obviously the Nearys were so used to ABBA, their team running the GT3, got this GT4. Ed McDermott in Q1, Mikey Broadhurst now sliding the car out of Druids, get it into Graham Hill, train the brake in, don't hit the centre on the exit, look really nice there. Comes through Sector 1, how's Sector 1 looking for him? Looks good at the moment, slightly quicker than Aston Miller's Sector 1 in Q1. Now this is where you can gain and lose a lot of the time on the GP track. The corners are so fast. It's all about that risk versus reward. We saw his risk versus reward scale quite high on the outlap. So let's see how it is coming into Hawthorne's. Really fast, really banked, 4th gear, all the way out to the exit. Maybe had a foot left, so not too bad. Into Westfield, loads of curb, but not too much where it bounces it up onto the exit. So we've got lots of clear room in front of him, looking good so far, and no sort of big slides, no major understeer. Maybe could use a little bit more curb there and on the exit. It's been a solid lap, but I'd say what Michael's probably done here is going for his banker lap. Looks like he's probably leaving a 10th or 2 on the table on some of these corner exits, and then the next lap, once he's got that new tyre knowledge, he'll be able to push on. As the pro in GT4, it's really difficult. You probably haven't had a new set of tyres all weekend the way the tyre works. So this will be the first time Michael would have had a new set of tyres, and suddenly it's a second and a half quicker than the last time he was in the car. Obviously the fastest lap so far, so not a bad lap, but I think there probably is just a little bit more as we see Darren Burke in another Mercedes go 0.2 quicker. So it is tight at the front so far in this Q4 session.
Yeah, it really is. So that was Michael Broadhurst making his way around in that Mercedes, which is also dicing on that outlap in the number 12 AMG Mercedes, the Silverstone 500 winners from earlier in the year. You see on your screen the combined times that both drivers have collected. We see the individual times, and right now it is Burke who's the fastest, 1:31.666, but it's not enough to get fastest overall. That currently goes to Nicol Jones in the number 62 Ford Mustang. Matt Nicol-Jones, Will Moore was in that car. Matt has now come in. So that Ford Mustang once again, showcasing some pace as Burke, though, individually is finding some good lap time, but Simpson has gone to the top in individual lap times.
Yeah, really good lap by Mike Simpson there in the Ginetta run by Toro Verde. Mike works for Ginetta Motorsport Director, claims he just is a simple office worker that sometimes has to jump in a race car, but we've seen him come halfway through the season. Didn't start the year with Townsend, his teammate, but has been rapid at occasions. Snetterton, his qualifying was ballistic. So here we are, Rowledge, the teammate of Aston Miller, who was on pole position for Q1. So far hasn't really hooked up a lap, 0.6 slower than Miller's time, so he will be looking for that little bit of time. They're still second overall, only 2.5 off Matt Nicol-Jones in this 62 Mustang. That Mustang looks great, doesn't it? Out the last corner. It's definitely the widest of the GT4 cars. It gives us a really good presence. Does he improve on his lap time? He does not, so that might be that car done. Michael Broadhurst has gone quicker, so after I was a little critical of his first lap, he then did improve, so I'm glad he could hear me going there. So we're seeing people push harder and harder. That is one of the biggest not accidents that should have been monumental I have ever seen. That was so close to being a plane crash as he dropped it on the exit of Westfield. You're probably doing 100, 120 miles an hour there. And the barrier, if that had grabbed the rear of the car, that would have sent it around. So let's just give him 50 luck, 50 skill there for Miller. That was incredible, wasn't it?
That was the Miller, Josh Miller Aston Martin Vantage with a bit of a bumpy ride, I think it's fair to say. You get a bumpy ride even if you're on the tarmac here, but if you're on the grass and losing the rear, he had no control of the Aston, managed to keep it just about out of the wall, but I'm sure that would have been a little bit of a heart-in-mouth moment. Broadhurst the fastest individually, which is a 1:31.271, but combined times it is still that Ford Mustang, which is at the top, with Matt Nicol-Jones at the wheel, taking over from his teammate Will Moore. This is that Mustang, a bit of American grunt on the British GT grid, a fantastic car with the yellow headlights, really striking out. That number 62 rounds the final corner, pit lane entry to your right. He found a lot of time in the first sector, losing a little bit of time in the middle sector. Has he made enough up in the final sector? Yes, he has. He finds more time, and overall it's a 3:03. But for Nicol-Jones, that was a 1:31.5. It's only a thousandth off of Cowley in front of him individually.
Really tight, isn't it? Teammates there, as we see Plato in the BMW jump up to third in this session. Rowledge still all the way down in 9th position, hasn't bettered that 32.0. He is on a better lap at the moment. We know that car can do a 31.5. The team will just be telling him, depending on the character, Josh is really calm. He'll be the kind of driver you'd want to hype up a bit. Charlie Hollings, the chief driver coach, looking after the two young drivers there. Be on the radio, they can talk live as much as they want. Come on, we've got this. You're good in practice. Where's the lap time? Don't overthink it. Run all the way out. This has looked like a clean second part of the lap. Let's hope it is in that sort of 31 section. Like 31.4 would be enough to get them back up to pole. And it's enough, even at 31.7, to get them clear. 9 thousandths with the combined times over Nicol-Jones, the car here. Sorry, Cowley, that is, the sister car there, which is only a 10th off pole overall. It's been a really, really tight session at the top three anyway.
Top three combined, less than a 10th and a half between all of them, which is so tight. Then comes Clark at the wheel of that McLaren, the number 90 Optimum Motorsport, one of our championship, or the main championship contender really. Fourth at the moment, but you can definitely do something from there. Were you a big radio man? Are you a big radio man? Do you like a lot of chats in the car?
I do. The team don't. So a lot of the time they just unplug it and
leave you talking to yourself.
Yeah, it really is. It's probably more important communication in a race car than it is in a marriage, because you lose facial sort of reading, so it's all just done over the radio. So you do have to be careful that you don't shout when it's not needed, because then everyone gets very stressed. But it is important, and it's where an engineer can really help you out. So we see Joe Wheeler lift himself up to 7th position on a 31.6, less than 4/10 off the pole position for this time, but it's getting really tight on the combined times.
Yeah, but he lifted himself up to 7th individually, but he's 10th overall is Wheeler in that Ginetta, sharing that with Ian Duggan, who was in the car. They are leading the AM Cup at the moment, and with the best of second actually at Snetterton a couple of months ago now. But it was a decent lap time from Wheeler, but still that Ginetta inside the top 10 then, ahead of Shorts, less than a 10th really between those two drivers. But up front it's still tight, with only 40 seconds left of this last of the qualifying sessions we'll see today. Just 9,000 between Rowledge and Nicol-Jones, and their combined times, the 36 McLaren and the 62 Ford Mustang up the front at the moment. There is the other Ford Mustang of Matt Cowley in the 61 third. He's equally only a 10th and a half back, so the two Mustangs neck and neck as well. How is it looking for Matt Cowley, who was on a final? This will be fast lap. He's fastest of anybody individually, a 1:31.269 on his own. Which is only 12 thousandths faster than Broadhurst, but a little bit of on-track overtaking to be done, but the number 80 Ginetta keeps nicely out of the way, but I think he's well and truly backed out of that one now, and he comes into the pits as the checkered flag flies.
And you might be thinking how the drivers are so confident to back out, and all of the cars have a live Delta system, so it is reading the lap time. See a bit of smoke coming out of that R Racing Aston Martin. There shouldn't be any refueling going on in quali. So
is it out of the car, or is it sort of cold? Is it cold air or ice? Do they have that down there to keep everything
They
cool?
Could do. I just saw people running away, and you normally run
maybe
away
yes, that's usually an indicator, isn't it?
Than ice, especially on a day like today. But it probably is just a bit of rubber dropping on the brakes. Rowledge still out there. These tyres will have to do the race, so he must be confident he's going to improve his lap time. Which does he do? I've lost him on time scale. No, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
He was only
They found time
4,000s.
overall, though, combined. But he does end up the session fastest with those combined times in that number 36 McLaren Artura GT4. Josh Rowledge at the wheel took over from Aston Miller, who was also top in the first session. So DTO Motorsport then looking quick.
Really looking quick. Like I said, they were here on a test day, and not many other teams were. Only Sentry with one other of the BMW GT4s. So you can see him really off the line there. The engineer, Charles Hodge, is running the car there. Really experienced engineer. They're obviously a bit careful, either ride height or weight. So as you run over the marbles, you're obviously picking up weight in detritus, but also ride height. There's a minimum ride height these cars need to be, and so he'll just be lifting that up. He's really searching for it, and as I said, these tyres will have to be used for the race. So the tyre technician there is going to have to scrape them and go. But Aston Miller, really, when you look at the combined times, Rowledge was only 8th overall. So these guys will be very happy. You can see them celebrating there. I think that's their first pole position of the year. So is the title fight still on? That's going to be the big question come tomorrow afternoon.
It certainly will be. That is one of the questions, but you can see the DTO Motorsport team really thrilled with that. Great drives, great laps from both of their drivers there. You mentioned the championship in GT4, just to give you a reminder, Jack Brown and Charles Clark in the Optimum Motorsport McLaren. They have the realistic chance of becoming GT4 champions this weekend. They still need 33-point lead to 38 come the end of this weekend to seal the deal. But DTO Motorsports are happy to give them a headache as long as they can at the end of that final qualifying session, the second for the GT4s, with Rowledge and Miller at the wheel of that McLaren, setting the fastest overall combined time to take GT4 pole in front of the 2 Ford Mustangs, Nickel Jones and Moore in the 62 in front of the 61, with Clark and Brown then championship elects perhaps on that Optimum Motorsport number 90 from 4th. Still plenty of work to be done in the racing tomorrow, with R Racing, Miller and Hopkins rounding out the top 5. Enduro Motorsport, the 2 Century Motorsport cars, Plato and Cavers, the top 8, with the Toro Verde GT and the Raceway Motorsports teams rounding out the top 10. Further down, Paddock Motorsports in 16th with Jundu and Rawlings, and Team Brits in that number 68, McLaren as well. McLaren all last 3 rows on the grid with Trundley and Morgan. Well, the sun's still well and truly out at Brands Hatch for another hot qualifying session. The last of them for the day here at Brands Hatch, seeing the GT4 cars out in force, and it was really get your elbows out straight away, especially for the team ABBA Racing number 12 Mercedes AMG car, which wanted track position and wasn't afraid to dip a wheel on the grass to get it. They did eventually get it, and were going quick to begin with. Once again, so were the Ford Mustangs, though. Will Moore, Matt Nicol-Jones, Eric Evans and Matt Cowley at the wheel of the 2 Mustangs, looking very quick. And then a scary moment for the Aston Martin, with picking up a lot of grass and lucky to get away with that one without too much damage. Managed to get back underway. And although the Mustangs and the McLarens were very much fighting tooth and nail in what was a tight qualifying session, it was the DTO Motorsport McLarens of Josh Rowledge and Aston Miller in that number 36 who take GT4 pole. Okay, so the pit lane quietens, and we were talking about how well the Ford Mustangs were doing. We could head down to Will Moore, who was at the wheel of one of those Mustangs, the number 62, with Bryn.
Well, Will, we were talking a few moments ago about your injury last season that meant we didn't really see you out here. And at the start of the season, you guys did so well with that pole position, that win, sorry, at Alton Park. And now looking at it, well, you're back up there at the sharp end where you should be.
Yeah, well, I think we've been given the right tools for the job this weekend, back where we should be, fighting for the pole positions. That's where we believe, the team, the car and the driver should be.
You were saying you think it was slightly masked then because of your great performance at Alton Park.
Yeah, well, everyone was also on wet tyres and we were on slicks. Once the track came to us, we were away.
What's the game plan then for tomorrow?
Oh, go for the win. We've got nothing to lose now in the championship, so go all out for the win.
All out. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Well, great to hear there from Will Moore in that Mustang. So looking very quick there. Well, titles still to be decided. GT4, can Jack Brown and Charles Clark take the GT4 Championship this weekend? We'll know more tomorrow after the race. And in GT3, James Cottingham and Johnny Adam are looking to take the GT3 drivers title with a race to spare. But there are lots of things to play out. Compensation time, not to mention pit stops and the general racing. We've seen here how cars could end up in the gravel so easily. Even on the outlaps in qualifying, we've seen cars going wheel to wheel to try and gain a little bit of positioning. Overtaking difficult around this Brands Hatch circuit, but it's a circuit that many and a majority of the drivers do enjoy, but we will see how it all unfolds tomorrow, Sunday, here in Brands Hatch for the penultimate round of the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. You can join us for all the racing action from about 1:10 local time, and it's lights out for the racing at 1:30. Lights out 1:30 for British GT. We hope you can join us then. I've been Harry Benjamin. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.